Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back with another episode of ECI Impact 2020. Today, I have Richard Davies. Richard, first of all, welcome and thank you for taking the time to visit with me today.
Thank you for having me, Tom. Pleasure.
Could you tell us your role with ECI?
Sure. I'm on the board of ECI. I've been on the board since 2021, and it's been a great opportunity to really meet other chief compliance officers and former Department of Justice officials and other industry players as part of the board. But it's really events like this where we get to visit with practitioners from around the country, from across industries and sectors, and listen to them in terms of what they're seeing at their companies, what risks they see in the landscape in the country and other countries, and just remember that we're one industry and that we can work together. And one of the speakers today, I think, said it well when he said that what a great industry we are, that even competitors can collaborate, because we all want the same thing at the end of the day, which is to further integrity in the business community.
It's a great observation. I came to compliance out of the General Counsel's office, and the first time I was with a group of compliance officers, I was stunned and probably a little shocked how open they were in discussing their problems, where in the legal department we would never have discussed those. But you're absolutely right. And one of the reasons I love this profession is a CCO can call up any other CCO, not to ask for confidential information, but they could ask, how did you handle this in your compliance program?
It's really amazing, and I'm part of the ECI board, but I also have other industry organizations that I'm part of, and it happens all the time that I'm working on something, and in that moment, one of my colleagues or peers from another company asks me that very question. We were talking about ChatGPT last week and what we're going to do to message to our employees about appropriate use of ChatGPT. And in that exact moment, the chief compliance officer of another multinational organization wrote to me and said, "Hey, Richard, what are you guys doing about ChatGPT?" This happens daily, and I hear it in the conference all the time. A speaker coming down from the dais and someone runs over and says, "Hey, I just had that exact issue. Do you mind if we speak for a moment?" And that is one of the really exciting things about this industry, and one of the things that drew me as well to it from the General Counsel's office.
And we started off this morning with the first keynote from Pat Harned, the president of ECI, and she appropriately reviewed the history of the organization as it is 100 years old, but she also looked to the future. And that followed with a presentation on ESG. I had the opportunity to speak with Andrew Wiseman, and then we had a speech by a fellow named Nick Gallo that also, I thought, looked towards the future. And I wanted to maybe end by asking you, we seem to be, if not at an inflection point, a point of great change. Coming out of the pandemic, technological innovations almost at the speed of light. You already mentioned ChatGPT, but data analytics. And I wondered if you maybe could talk to us about how you would see the role of ECI in leading that discussion and leading practitioners such as yourself.
ECI traditionally has been focused on ethics and compliance, and not in a narrow way for our industry, but in a classic way for our industry. And I think what Pat has done and what this board has done is help pivot the organization to ESG and to other really important issues of the day, to allow the industry to think more broadly. This is not only about the FCPA or antitrust or trade sanctions, all very important issues, and we have to take care of those perhaps first as teams. However, what I see happening is a real convergence between all of the things that I just said in terms of what companies face. So boards, senior management teams, they're looking at risk. And they really are focused on what is the most important risk, not which group is doing what. And if we're going to be more relevant going forward and to keep the relevance, we have to take a broad view of our roles and our functions. And I think ECI has done a great job of giving us that guide to add to our interest areas, ESG, how can we support sustainability teams more effectively with the skills that we have, with the teams that we have, I think is a great example, and I'd like to see the organization continue to do that. And I think that panel you described as the second panel was a great example of broadening the way that we think about the role of E&C in support of the broader risks and opportunities facing organizations. And I don't think there's a better example than ESG. And who would have thought 3 or 4 years ago The second, or actually the first real panel of the meeting was on ESG at an ECI conference. So I think that's a real transformation. I think it's an important one. And we need to continue to think that way because we need to follow where the business is going. And we can see the business now is thinking much more critically in terms of who our stakeholders are, what is the role of business in society, and if we miss that boat as an industry, we've really missed a very significant opportunity to continue to be relevant. And so I see that as a really important role for ECI, and I expect that will continue and develop and mature in the coming months and years.
Richard, I wanted to thank you for taking the time to visit with me, and I greatly look forward to continuing this conversation.
Thank you, Tom. It was a pleasure.